I can walk? See ya. TLDR at bottom. This was about 710 years ago. I needed a cheap commuter car. And knew my budget. I had saved up $3,500 cash. And was ready to buy. The car would give my wife and I some freedom in not having to juggle the car for our too busy schedules between two jobs and unfortunately very different class schedules in a state that's pretty spread out, i.e. public transportation wasn't really effective at that time. It's gotten loads better now in the larger cities. Medium-sized compared to the coastal big cities. I digress. There was a dealership on a busy road in the city I lived in at the time. They didn't have the greatest reputation. I had heard a few stories over the years. But they had an inexpensive car, a first-generation Hyundai Tiburon that had lowish miles. About 75k or so. If memory serves me well. A manual transmission. And it looked pretty clean. It was white in the online pictures. Which isn't my fav color. But the paint looked to be in excellent condition. Overall looked pretty nice. It was listed for $4,000. Figured I could manage a small loan for that. And should be able to negotiate price. Before going, I did my research. I compared dealership price estimating from several sites using all features listed on their ad. KBB, Nada, Edmunds, etc. And also compared comparable cars across the country and locally being sold by owners. The highest price I could find from estimations and websites was $4,000 for a similarly clean car with lower miles. So I felt armed with the info I needed and had copies on my phone ready to go. I got there and noticed that the car was actually painted with a pearlescent paint job. The most visible color was white, but in certain light, it was actually sparkly pink. That would have to be painted over, no thank you. But that was just more negotiating material since I doubted that's a popular color scheme for a car. The test drive went well, nothing major noted. My visual inspection around the car inside and out didn't find anything. So I was feeling pretty good about the state of the car. I felt confident the car was worth the higher end of the estimates I had found. But wanted to negotiate down a few $100s for a new paint job I would do elsewhere. Let the negotiations begin, I thought. The salesperson didn't know what the price was and went to the financial person to get that data. I told them what their online price was and wanted to start there. He seemed new and unsure that he really needed to go talk to the finance person first, which maybe should have been a red flag. I shook my head and waited. He came back saying the car was $6,000 because they had to replace the transmission. So they needed to get their money back for that work, and started down that path. I'm like, nope. Here's my research, and laid it all out. Made the sales guy super nervous. After an hour of banter, I ended up getting the dealership manager, or whatever their title was, telling me that the car was worth $6,000. Not out the door price either. Blah blah blah. I got frustrated and told her that, congratulations. Your work on the transmission earned the car the top end of what it can be worth with the options. Mileage, make and model we're talking about. That's $4,000. And I'm happy to pay that. But not a penny more on the car before taxes. Title, our licensing is figured. To which she snapped back, take it out, leave it. And the clouds of frustration parted. The skies cleared. And the angelic courses of malicious compliance sang through the air in my mind. You're right. Good luck selling it. I'm out, and I walked away. She tried to tell me I was obligated. That they had already gotten my verbal agreement to buy the car because I had started negotiations. Blah, 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 blah. I just laughed as maniacally as I could muster. Imagine Vizzini from The Princess Bride. And kept walking. They threatened to get their lawyers involved. And I have them the finger as I drove away in our car toward home. And guess what? Never got a call from their lawyer or served any papers. The dealership actually went out of business a few months later. So unexpected. I later learned how lucky I was when I talked to my dad about the dealership. He had apparently tried to trade a car in with them a while before then. But they had handled things a little differently with him. Asked for his car keys to evaluate his car. Then refused to give him his keys back when they tried to spring on extra fees to his sale and he wanted to walk. Dad had to start dialing 911 before they gave up and returned his keys. TLDR. Sketchy dealership tried to sell me a car at 150% its actual possible worth. Then threatened legal action when I maliciously complied with their ultimatum. Found out later my dad almost had to call police to get his old car keys back from them when he tried to walk from a bad deal. Dealership went out of business a few months later. I try to take the attitude of, you need me way more than I need you. Verbal agreement to buy the car, because you started negotiations? What's the point of negotiating if you're obligated to buy in the end anyway? That whole key thing they did with your dad is an old sales tactic. If you're trading your old car in, they will do everything to not give you the keys back. I would have walked soon as they came out with the $6,000, not the online price. Asked for his car keys to evaluate his car. Then refused to give him his keys back when they tried to spring on extra fees to his sale and he wanted to walk. Very common trick going back decades before cell phones were a thing. Especially if you were an unaccompanied woman coming in to buy. I was car shopping a long time ago and stopped in at a used place that had a shady reputation. I liked the car, but the price was too steep. So I just got up to go elsewhere. And the salesman insisted that he wanted to see me drive out of here today with this car. He first suggested that I borrow money from my parents to get it. Then offered to loan me money himself to convince me to buy it. No thanks. Dude. Haha. My mom's husband passed away and she wanted to sell his car as she didn't have a need for it herself. Said car was worth about $16,000. Low miles. All options. Immaculate condition. That car was his baby. Took it to the dealership in town and they had to run some numbers. After sitting around for half an hour, the guy comes back and with a straight face tells her the best he could offer was $8,000. I wanted to drag him across the desk. In a further condescending tone he throws in, "We buy these all the time for that price." Well, then you better go find one because you're not touching this one. Got her keys and left before it got any worse. It wasn't just the price that was insulting but his whole demeanor, like she should have been happy to get even that much for it. The nerve of that guy. A buddy's girlfriend worked at an auto dealership and she told me, never, ever, buy anything from them. Quote, about a year later my roommate was going to buy a used car at that dealership. I told him what I was told, and reminded him that the girl telling me this worked there. Nope. He's too smart to be swindled. So he thought. He got financing from the dealership and also traded in his existing car. With the new car ready for pickup the following day. Of course the following day there was a problem with the paperwork. They forgot that there was an additional $1,500 financing fee. And this is in the late 1980s. And when he said, "Deal's off. Give me my old car back," naturally they said, "Sorry. It's already been resold." When he told me what happened, he said, "Go ahead. Tell me you said so," but I didn't say a word. We both knew what an arrogant FZCK he had been. Gotta say, I love the Vizzini reference. Car sales are scum. I, sadly, currently work at a dealership now. Sales hasn't changed a damn bit. That reminds me of when my dad took me to buy my first car. I had about $1,200 in 1978. Now my dad was a hardcore salesman. Always went for the hard sell. Assumed the sale. He knew his job and he excelled at it. Before we walked into the first dealership, he told me, "I don't care if you fall in love with the car. If I say we walk, don't say a word. Get up and walk with me." Sure enough, negotiations hit a wall. He looked at me and he said, "Okay, let's go." We went to another dealership and bought another car. 2 years later, trading in that car, they offered us a paltry $150 trade-in. Dad gave me that look again, and we walked toward the exit. By this point I had fallen in love with the car we were negotiating for. But I trusted Dad. The salesman came running across the sales floor, shouting, $250. Quote, "I got my car." When they tell you, take it or leave it, don't they forfeit any right to the sale? Seeing as she gave you the direct option to leave it? Fun fact. El Tiburon means shark in Spanish. Good job for telling the dealership who's the boss. I hope you got a better deal at another place. Why are so many used car dealerships borderline criminal enterprises? You did the right thing. You could have also threatened to inform the local authorities. Here it would be the city attorney's office. That they are committing fraud by listing a car for sale at one price and then refusing to sell it at that price. Back in '93 went to buy a new Isuzu Rodeo. Wife and I test drove with one person, then were handed off to the closer. We made our deal and we're waiting for financing to come through. The closer comes in and says, "Let's take a walk." We head out to the lot and she starts saying, "The Rodeo is a lot of car for your first big purchase. What do you think of the some little compact car I can't name?" I stopped her right there and said, "Tell the truth. Do we qualify or not? We're here for a rodeo, not something else. We don't need any car. We want the car we want." She sheepishly said we didn't qualify, said thanks and left. 6 months later went to another dealer with our price club, now Costco. Set pricing and got a Rodeo for $300 over invoice. Still feel satisfied about that experience. Not my wife though. Really pissed her off. Enjoyed the Rodeo for about 6 years before upgrading to a Suburban. 4 years ago, I was in the market for a Reason OC-enable used car. I had narrowed it down to a Chrysler Town & Country. I checked around at several dealerships. Went to look at one at a very popular dealership. Among the questions was, "How does the hide the seats thing work?" The salesman tried, but with no success. He called over another guy. No luck there either. With all the extra salesmen circling the van and climbing in and out, running in circles around it, the sales that came out to help looked like the Keystone Cops. It just proves it pay to do your research. Face with monocle brilliant. I had a similar experience with a TrueCar certified dealer. I was looking for a first-generation Durango, 100k miles, and KBB and another site were saying that dealer price for that should be about $56,000 for excellent condition. I saw one this dealer had. Their website pictures made it look really good, though on seeing it in person, they had obviously airbrushed out some major paint damage and had it listed at $7,000. I figured they just had it high so they could come down and still profit. So I scheduled a test drive and bought insurance effective that day. When I got there, I saw the extensive paint damage, torn up upholstery, and torn out compartments and cup holders. Going out for the test drive, I discovered that while the engine didn't sound bad, at its best it didn't sound good either. The driver's seat also shifted forward and backward by several inches under acceleration and deceleration, which was a safety issue. When we got back, I asked to talk about price, and the salesperson told me they couldn't budge on listed, because they'd had to spend so much money to get it to sellable condition, and in fact would have to increase the price for fixing the seat. I told them I was prepared to pay $5.5K out the door that day, and they stuck to their refusal to budge, telling me I'd never find what I was looking for at that price. 4 days later, I rolled back in to show them the Durango I'd bought 20 miles away from them. 3 years newer, 500 more miles, nearly perfect inside and out, $5,600 out the door, and it came with a 2-week total powertrain warranty. Found out in between walking out and coming back with my purchase that all the work they'd done on the overpriced one was scheduled maintenance, with the exception of removing an aftermarket security system. Dad had to start dialing 911 before they gave up and returned his keys. Wow. Carp mouth in amazement.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.